Okay, our next speaker is Leslie Lucas with Petaluma Reusable Cup Pilot. With over 25 years of leadership in solid waste, I would say zero waste and resource management, Leslie is a recognized expert in advancing zero waste initiatives. As the ED of Zero Waste Sonoma, she oversees comprehensive programs in HHW, recycling, organics, and zero waste across 10 jurisdictions in Sonoma County. Hi. Thank you, Leslie.
Great to be here. Thank you. So I'm going to go over the Petaluma Cup project. And with that, all right, it's working. With that, this is a project where we worked with an organization called the Next Closed Loop Partners and their group for the Next Gen Consortium. So Closed Loop Partners is an investment equity firm that does financing for the closed loop economy, as well as research on closed loop systems. And Next Gen Consortium is funded by, you can see the brand owners, McDonald's, Starbucks, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo. These were all investors in this pilot program. So Zero Waste Sonoma, we were just a partner in it. We didn't lead it. We just assisted them, as well as the city of Petaluma. So there was a lot of planning that went into this pilot program. And with that, it started with, consumer studies of, reuse systems. And then it went to the life cycle analysis of the cup and what was the right cup to use. Eventually, they selected a site. They did a nationwide search on what would be a good community that kind of represented rural, both and urban, that had a nice downtown, that was environmentally thinking forward, where the program would be a success. So that was some of the reasons why Petaluma and Sonoma County were selected as the test pilot of this program. They then studied different forms of cups and what ideal cups would be returned, and then set up the reverse logistics in the collection system and tested that, and then eventually went out and did the training to the businesses who are participating, put out all of the bins, and then it was go time. And at that point, it was launched for 12 weeks, and then the results were just published actually last month. So the cup that was used was the polypropylene cup. They studied various cups from a greenhouse gas perspective, as well as cups that would be returned. And so if the cup was used, if it had a 70% return rate, the cup that was designed would have the best greenhouse gas. But there's a lot of variables that go into that testing. But in their testing models, that's what they settled with, was the polypropylene cup. And a steel cup, had the highest greenhouse gas footprint. And in a study like this, it was only for 12 weeks. So I could say the cup was probably one of the biggest complaints that we received from the public in terms of people being concerned about plastics and plastics being washed. But when you're doing a pilot like this all across one community from a greenhouse gas perspective, this was the most viable system. So in our system, we had 30 businesses that participated, all within a 3-mile radius. It was some of the big brands that I mentioned that were investing in this pilot, as well as mom and pop coffee shops, restaurants, 7-Eleven. You can kind of see some of the logos up there of the participants of the program. But back to the cup. When doing research on this cup, it was, you wanted to be disrupted to the system. And it was a major change all within one day of people who are serving the cup, as well as receiving the cup. So purple was a designated color because not many systems in recycling or waste management use purple. So that's why that color was used. The return and using that word return instead of reuse, that was because that's the message that we wanted them to actually return the cup for reuse, and then just keeping that a memorable tagline, as well as the bin matching the cup itself. So the restaurant would receive it. Of the 30 participants, they all used the same branded cup except for Starbucks. Starbucks did do their own branding on their cup, but it looked consistent with the purple cup. The cups came in 12, 16, and 22 ounce. And then the messaging was consistent with all the establishments on the interior so that people could see a clear message. And from there, there were 3 different types of bins that were used, just an outdoor regular bin, an indoor bin at the establishments where you purchased the cup, and then a drive-through bin to make it convenient when you're on the go. One thing with working with these brand owners is it's probably the biggest investment I would think that can happen. If you're a public entity or a public agency or a city, this takes a lot of money to launch a test system like this, a pilot. But when you have that kind of investment in a system, you have the marketing to really get the message out. So in this case, there was a website that was launched, there was an app, there were TV commercials, there were influencers that were paid. So one of our colleagues lives in Petaluma, so she certainly got a lot of the messaging through Facebook and Instagram by influencers, just local media on the TV, there was print, there was banners. So it really was a full press. If you were going to do education outreach, what would that look like? And the messaging also changed over time. So when it started, it was, more like an introductory of this is the program and in return. But then let's see if you can go back. Yes. So, but then as the 12 weeks went on, the message was actually more like bring your cup back. So every cup adds up. And we also, when we hit when the program hit the $150,000 or 150,000 return of cups, the goal was to get 200,000 back. So it was that messaging of, we can do it. And then at the very end, the last week of messaging, it was give your cup up, because that was the whole point, is getting the cup back. So how did the logistics work? It was the cups were delivered to the 30 businesses that participated. The beverages would be served. This was an all opt-in. There was no option for opting out. Everybody received the cup. All single-use cups went away. Then the consumer would put the cup in the bin. Then the program worked with a group called Muse, and that already had the reverse logistics company here in Oakland, where they would pick up the cups and wash them, sanitize them, inspect them, and then deliver them back out to the community. The program also worked with Recology at the MRF. The MRF was also set so that they could sort out the purple cup. So those were counted in the system so that it would be understood how many cups were being recycled versus reused. Also, all the cups had a QR code on them. So the QR code was also used to understand where cups were purchased versus where cups were received, and various of the metrics that I'm about to share. So in terms of community feedback, it was very widely received. 83% of the residents, used it. They understood what to do. One of the other biggest information that we received is, how do we get the cups? How do we expand this program? It was about like a quarter of all the emails. We also saw organic growth. This is one of the schools created their own bin, as well as a Halloween costume, because this was happening this last fall. So as the final results, over 200,000 cups, 220,000 cups were returned, and that was about a 51% return rate, meaning that each cup was used roughly over 2 times. So some things that we had to overcome in the project was the vast majority of beverage containers are consumed away from point of purchase. So that meant that we had to make it convenient. So there's over 60 bins throughout the community, mainly concentrated where the restaurants were in downtown, but 60 bins throughout various areas. And a lot of these bins were also 24/7 access. So like it was outside of the business. Also, not everybody sometimes feels included in these environmental movements. So making it like convenient and easy and opt-in was your only choice, and normalized the process of reuse. So doing something first time can be, disruptive to a system. So we tried to make it as easy for the public as well as the restaurants, and keeping it simple with the color and the messaging. And then also, consumers tend to be used to using single use. So trying to make that also that increased convenience factor as well. One of the things about the cups, though, is you have to make the cup not too boring that it's going to be thrown away, but not too great where someone wants to keep it. So that's that middle, right? That you want people to return it back. So that's kind of what was intended with the cup is, what's going to make people not want to keep it and actually return it into the system. So one of the other complaints that came in was the ick factor of reusing a cup that somebody else used before you. I mean, we heard things like, what about the homeless who are going to defecate in the cup? And we're just like, come on, this is this. So the messaging was sanitized, not that it was just washed, but it was sanitized. And the other lesson was, is it possible to return every cup? No, we know that some cups do go out of the system because people may be just passing through Petaluma and not actually staying in the city. So moving forward, last slide, is what are some of the things looking ahead in this pilot? Because the pilot's over, as I mentioned, the report's out. But about, one thing is addressing the material type, what can you use that's FDA approved, BPA free, that can be washed multiple times. Also designed for an opt-out system. So if people had the opportunity to say, oh, I'm not here from Petaluma, I'm just passing through, that they actually could take a cup to go. And then how do you monetize this? Because it was expensive. And so is there a private-public partnership? We did apply for a Swiffer grant. Do you guys think we're going to get that? Probably not, because I doubt it even exists anymore. But we did apply for one to expand it. And then I'll also elevate the cup. Getting coffee from a purple cup may not be as appealing as if there was a white lining on the inside. So with that, I'm happy to take questions. Hi.
Curious, with only a 51% return rate of store on average 2 times, why did the program decide not to use any incentive to get people to return the cups? Almost all the other takeout reusable programs have a deposit, a subscription, or a charge if you fail to return the cup.
That's what makes this program. So the question is, why wasn't there a deposit system to help incentivize? That actually was one of the things that that Closed Loop wanted to study was just to make it normal. Don't make it incentivized. They want to make it equitable to all people. Maybe having to pay a deposit would be a deterrent for some people. And so this was to make it normal and just part of a system. There's no other gimmick than that's just what it is. You're only getting this cup in a concentrated area. Freddie, I could not hear that question.
I heard something. Can you repeat the question?
Can you hear it now? Okay, we'll try to get that. Thank you.
We'll try to. Hey, Leslie, so the question I had was, during your GHG calculation, did you take into consideration possibly using aluminum that would be more durable and would be sanitized at a much higher temperature than plastic and would have much more life cycle than the plastic? So GHG calculation is also a cost difference.
Closed Loop, not us, but did look at different material types. One of the drawbacks of the different metals is that the cup also had to be for hot. So that meant that you would have to have a thicker aluminum. You know, there are certainly aluminum single-use water bottles out there, but in this case, it had to be versatile, and, you know, denting sometimes happens with those aluminum cups. And then also the cup that was used, the polypropylene, it was meant for both hot and cold, which aluminum, you would have to kind of change the you know, the width of the cup. So that's why they ended up with the polypropylene. And also, this is only for 12 weeks. The goal is to continue the program, and we do have, the bins are all in storage, the cups that are left over are in storage, but with something that is only 12 weeks, the metals would just be at a higher cost and a higher environmental cost.
One more question?
We have one right there.
Nothing more questions?
Question, you said the cups are in storage, so what's the plan to use of those or no use?
We hope to launch the program if we can understand the financing and also get a better public-private partnership. There's no way, well, I can't say there's no way, but being a government agency, trying to figure out how to fund this project just solely on our dime is probably not realistic. So we would need some type of investment or even EPR so that the producers of these products help invest in the collection system. So that is our goal. That's why we looked for SWIFR funding. And we'll continue to look for other funding so that we can relaunch it and expand it, because it was very successful. I mean, I can just say the public space recycling bins, or I should say reuse bins for the cups, had virtually zero contamination. So for those of you who got to tour it, NCRA led a tour of the program, that's one thing you saw, is there was, out of public space bins typically have high contamination. These had virtually no contamination.
I know.
Freddie says no.
Fine, Leslie, you'll be at green drinks too? All right.